one left.
Hey there, it's Theta, the monotone messiah. I was a player on Mayhem. I created and coached Tempo. Was also a caster. Also created a bunch of videos on YouTube, mostly tutorials. And I was on the board of the IVRL. I think most likely the people who have seen me on my YouTube channel. I made tutorials primarily. I did make some other types of videos, but tutorials were the ones that everybody seemed to like the most. Those ones have the highest views. So unless you played with me or you paid attention to the Onward scene, which is a very small number of people, most likely you know who I am because of a YouTube video of mine that you watched. I don't care at all about the stuff that happened in the game. It was cool reaching #1 in the world. It was cool watching Tempo progress through the ladder. Great. What really mattered to me was the impact I was having on the people I was interacting with, and I can safely say that the impact has been positive across the board for the people that I worked with closely, and I still keep in touch with many of them. It's cool especially to see the younger people grow up into young adults and just see how they've taken their experience being serious competitors in Onward and used it in other areas of their life. That whole idea of never give up, of constantly trying to figure out where you can improve and then taking action to make those improvements happen, all of that snowballing into great improvements in their real lives, that is what's satisfying to me, not anything that happened in the game, because all of that is transitory. The way most people do, I imagine. I bought Onward, played the single player, felt like it was a bit boring. I wanted something more interesting and more competitive. Started playing in lobbies that were PvP, then I started playing comp lobbies, and then I got recruited. No, I don't believe in regrets, just at a conceptual level. Any mistake that you make, any problems you run into, any opportunities you missed, they can all be used as fuel for growth. It's a matter of perspective. And maybe something didn't work out the way you wanted it to. There are a million different reasons why that could be the case, but that's just your story. It wasn't the right time, you weren't the right person, you weren't ready yet, whatever it is. You just need to look back, recognize where you could grow from that, and then take the next step forward. I will answer this, but I have to admit I'm not a big fan of these conversations. Not just about Onward, but about sports or business, you name it. It's just a tiring conversation in a lot of ways, and people miss the point. You can't figure out who is the best of all time. It is an untestable idea. You have no idea. And high levels of skill and high levels of success, they all depend on who you're playing against, the level of sophistication of the meta at the time, the level of sophistication of tactics at the time, all these different factors that you just can't account for. So when somebody says they're the greatest of all time, it just doesn't really make sense, especially since you don't know what's going to happen in the future. If you put a gun to my head and told me to pick somebody, I would say James Boak. I'm not saying that purely because we played on the same team. I'm saying that for some very solid reasons. Number one, James is the full package skills-wise. The guy could do anything. Everything he did, he was good at it. If you ask him about it, I'm sure he'd tell you, no, I have certain flaws, blah, blah, blah. And it's not that he's a god or anything. It's not like that. It's just that he was good at everything. He could throw grenades. Everybody already knows that. But he was also excellent at capping. He was usually the top killer on the team throughout the season. And on top of that, he did that in a leadership position. It's very, very difficult to not just be a good player, but also to be the shot caller in the middle of the match. James could keep a model of the entire map in his head and figure out where people are, where the holes are, where attacks should be taking place, and just very quickly come to very good decisions. Even beyond all that, just the ethical standard that James maintained for himself and his team was remarkable, especially when you're in this world where there's lots of younger people who are more willing to be aggressive with the rules, or in some cases even just outright break them and cheat or do something shady like that. James just refused. He only ever played with a stock. He only ever played on PC VR. He had no interest in doing anything other than that. His attitude was, I need to be good at this, and I will be. In my mind, it's very difficult to say anybody else can top him if we're going to have this conversation about who the best player ever is. There are certainly people who won more matches or won championships or were better at specific types of skills, but bringing it all together in the way he did was unique. On tempo, it's very difficult for me to say I felt like there was a single best player. There was so much talent there, especially the first version of tempo that we put together. It was Extreme Tracks, Korwinky, Lego for Days, Turtle, Rangu, Thickless, and Lampy. That was a monstrous team. They just didn't have a lot of time to play together, and unfortunately, one of the players had to leave because they were a high-level, nationally ranked athlete in high school, and their parents wanted them to focus much more on that, so they get a scholarship, which was the right decision, by the way. And there were some other things that happened where people just had to leave or couldn't spend as much time because of things going on in their lives. But that team had a few matches together. It was, I believe, 5 matches at the end of the VRML regular season. And then they finished, it was something like 3rd or 4th in the Challenger Cup after that. And this was after only that many matches together. And they just didn't have time to really coalesce and mature and work out some of their kinks. But if they had the raw talent to absolutely take a championship. It was such a good setup, too, because we had these 2 little subunits within the team, which were made up of people who had played together on other teams and just worked extremely well together. On the one hand, you had Lego for Days and Turtle, and then it was Korwinky and Extreme Tracks. They could all kill, they could all cap, they were all very aggressive, and especially if you let Lego or Extreme anywhere near the cap point, it was over. They were getting it. They just do it in the blink of an eye. And they were so good at improvising and getting to where they needed to go. This is true on both offense and defense. People often just didn't know what to do with them. People would just get tilted beyond belief. In fact, in our very first match, the team that we played against quit. We were, I think, halfway through the second map, and the captain just rage quit, and everybody else left the lobby. And this happened a bunch of times in both matches and in scrims where we'd play against established teams and beat them, and somebody would inevitably freak out. Somebody get very upset about it. So the team itself, just by the very nature of how aggressive and unpredictable it was, would just tilt people hard. The whole reason I named that team Tempo was because my central strategic belief is that you win by controlling the tempo of the match. Somebody wants to go slow, you make them go fast, and vice versa. That team was excellent at it. It really embodied the entire idea behind the team. This is going to sound very counterintuitive, and I'm sure it's not what a lot of people want to hear, but don't spend so much time on this game. There's a serious problem out there with people are using video games as a way to escape from their own reality. And the answer to problems in your real life is not to run away from them. It is to confront them. And that may be painful, it may be uncomfortable, but that's how you solve problems. This is especially an issue with younger people, I would argue particularly younger men, who maybe feel isolated, maybe they feel like they can't do anything about their situation because they're stuck at school, they don't have money, so on and so forth. So what do? They just go cocoon themselves in their room, they put on a VR headset, they watch YouTube videos all day, whatever. That is extremely unhealthy. And I know I contributed to this because I put out all these videos telling people how they get further and further into this rabbit hole. And I'm trying to tell you right now, that is not how you should be spending your time. No matter what age you are, no matter what your situation is, you can always make your situation better if you're unhappy with it. On the flip side, I know people who are responsible adults or responsible teenagers, whatever, who they have their lives together and this is just their hobby. That's great. Especially as an adult, if your family's taken care of, you got money in the bank, everything is fine, cool, do whatever you want. However, if you're getting into competitive onward, before you do that, take a look at your life, a very hard, honest look at your life, and ask yourself, is this a good use of your time right now? This is something I could talk about for hours, and I don't want to create too firm of a box around what leadership is because there's so many different ways to be a leader. But the standard that I held myself to and that I held other people to revolved around a few things. First of all, responsibility. Do you take responsibility when things go wrong? If you're constantly pointing your fingers at your teammates or the circumstances you're in or something like that, or if you start getting tilted really hard and you don't take accountability for the fact that you are losing your cool and do something like either calm yourself down or take yourself out of the match, then you're just not leadership material. It also matters how self contained you are. And what I mean by that is, do other people constantly have to manage you? Do you need other people to tell you what to do? In other words, if you're just an order taker, you don't have a lot of initiative, you don't like to make decisions, you like to push that responsibility onto somebody else, then again, you're just not leadership material. As a leader, you need to be able to make difficult decisions. For example, let's say you have somebody on your team who you like as a person, but they're just not pulling their weight anymore. Sometimes you can help people overcome their challenges by giving them a pathway, giving them feedback, and watching them improve. It's not like if somebody makes a mistake, they should just be taken out of the team. But if you've continuously talked to this person and they just won't change, the patterns remain in place, no matter how you feel about them as a human, you need to sit down and say, I'm sorry, this isn't working out anymore. Some people just are not built to have those kinds of conversations. They want to be friends with people. They don't like confrontation. And if you have those kinds of qualities, you should not be in a leadership position. It's also very important that as a leader, you're not hyper self-focused. To be clear, this is not about ethics. It's not about selfishness or anything like that. It's about being able to see your unit as a whole and understand its strengths and weaknesses. If you're not doing that constantly and asking yourself who's good at this, who's bad at that, and figuring out how you can overcome your weaknesses and maximize your strengths, you won't be able to go very far as a leader. And at a more intangible level, leaders need to be able to kind of flip the switch between being very calm and being able to fire people up. A lot of people think being a leader means staying calm all the time. It's important that you're calm most of the time, for sure, but people need to see that you have some kind of emotion behind you. They need to know that you can get fired up, that you can get them fired up when things are not going well. All of these factors are what make leadership so challenging and fascinating because you have to combine them in your own way. You have to figure out how to manage people on an individual level. And especially you're dealing with high performers, you're often dealing with characters who are more akin to artists, very emotional, very volatile, and leaders are often the ones who can point those people with all their energy and all their skill in the right direction. Because if they don't have that, they're just going to crash and burn. No, that phase of my life is over. Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's funny. Who knows where it came from? It came from the ether as far as I'm concerned. No. You will not see any more videos on my channel. You heard it here first. No, I don't have Steam on my computer anymore. I don't play games at all. I can't even remember the last time I turned on my VR headset. So, again, that part of my life is behind me.
One of the most valuable things I ever got out of my time playing Onward was gaining some sort of relationship with Theta. He taught me so much about how to work as a team, not getting tilted, keeping your head in the game. And a lot of the stuff he taught me actually applied to my life in general whenever I had to work with other people.